everybody. Welcome back. This week we are reading chapter 7 in the textbook, and it's all about research. And I'm really excited because I'm a nerd and I love research. I love digging into existing research about a company. I love formulating questions that can be asked in a survey. I think research is very helpful and necessary to figure out what sort of advertising and marketing that you really need to take advantage of. And so I'm excited for you to read the chapter this week. I'm going to just talk to you for a couple minutes about some research that I know of in terms of advertising and some that I think is kind of commonly used in today's business environment. I think that's important for you to read the textbook and get kind of a solid understanding of the research history in marketing and advertising and some of the changes that have happened recently in research. But I want you to know what's common practice in kind of business today so that you can think about that as you're making decisions about your career and hopefully contributing to the organization where you work or where you will work someday. And so it's important to me to communicate to you what some of the common terms are and what research tactics are put into place today in businesses. So let's talk about a couple of those. Market research is kind of a general bucket for all data that you might gather about your customers, your business, just the demographic that you serve. It's about their preferences and behavior, their attitudes. Market research generally helps advertisers understand their audience better and tailor their messages accordingly. Surveys and focus groups are types of research that you'll hear about pretty commonly. Surveys are so easy to implement now that we have social channels to distribute surveys. Those are really kind of common practice. But surveys can also be done through phone calls or in-person interviews. Focus groups can be done the same way. You can gather individuals online, but there's kind of more consistently they're in small groups of people asking for feedback on specific products or advertisements. Advertising tracking studies are generally utilized at larger companies because it's tracking an advertising campaign over time. And so it's generally a larger campaign and it's measuring the success of the campaign over a given period of time. Some interesting new sorts of research are things like eye tracking research or eye tracking studies. Eye tracking technology watches the eyes of your consumers to see where they visually engage with an advertisement. So it typically helps you to identify which components of the ad are most attractive and which components of the ad might go completely unnoticed. Neuromarketing research is, as it sounds, it's neuroscience techniques. So they're studying the brain and looking to see how the brain responds to certain advertising stimulus. So it'll help understand the consumer's subconscious reactions, their emotional reactions when they see or engage with an advertisement. It's really fascinating. Another kind of recently emerging research practice is social media listening. That's just monitoring your social platforms for things like mentions, sentiment, and reactions to things that you post. All of that can be really valuable feedback when you're looking at an advertising campaign. A more traditional form of research I forgot to mention is competitive analysis, just looking at how you compare to your competitors. That helps you to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, what some of your unique selling points are in order to differentiate your product, your service, or even just differentiate the campaign that you're working on. One form of research that we put into practice pretty regularly in my 9-to-5 job is A/B testing. A/B testing is kind of a form of split testing. So it's developing an ad, one message into different looking ads or two different mediums and testing to see which performs better. So test A might be on one platform, test B might be on another platform. And what you're doing essentially is seeing which of the two platforms works the best. Or maybe advertisement A is in pink, advertisement B is in blue, and you are seeing which of the colors resonates better with your consumers. So A/B testing is also something that you will likely run into in your career at some point. Big data analytics is just looking at research that's provided to you to be able to figure out it's larger sets of data provided to you. I'm going to share some resources with you about that in this class so that you can kind of follow along on some of these larger companies that provide this type of data. And this just tells you, for example, how millennials or Gen Z consumers are behaving and what their preferences are in terms of advertising. So it's kind of big data analytics is zooming way out and looking at consumers as a whole and then segmenting them in very large chunks, like we just described, for example, by a date range of their birth dates. That isn't always really useful for you as an advertiser, but it certainly can be as you're narrowing your own target market, looking at sort of a bigger slice of the pie there, or zooming way out and looking at big data analytics can be helpful for you when you're working on a campaign. Ethnographic research is an interesting form of research. It's essentially just showing your product or showing your advertisement to a group of consumers and then watching how they interact with the product or the advertisement, maybe behind a screen of some sort or something like that, so that they don't know that you're watching, but you can get an organic feel for what they gravitate toward and what reactions they have to your piece. So those are some examples. You're going to read about more examples and more in-depth examples of research that can be helpful for advertising in this chapter. But I'm also going to pop in a video here about Burger King. And Burger King did this cool research study where they asked consumers in the international space if they could name some of the burgers on the Burger King menu, and they would offer them $10,000 if they could name a handful of burgers on the menu. And even with $10,000 on the line, they found out that most people could not name any other burger besides the Whopper. And so what's interesting is instead of getting kind of spun up on the idea that they needed to educate consumers about other offerings on their menu, they instead did the exact opposite. And they leaned into the idea that the Whopper is so recognizable globally that that should continue to be their main focus. And so watch this video and think about all the different types of research that you could use in your own career or that you might use in your future career to help you be a better marketer and a better advertiser. Okay, let's take a look at the Burger King video.
Whopper? Whopper?
The second one,
Whopper.
Papa.
Whopper?
Whopper. Third one is
don't know. Whopper and cheese.
Crispy.
Potato? Burger?
you know this large one with cheese.
And I went to Burger King yesterday.
I don't know.
Whopper? Whopper. That's my favorite.
How about just a normal cheeseburger?
Can I ask help from a friend or something? Ian, do you know the names of Burger King? Whopper, just the Whopper. I guess I have tried the what? Big King?